There isn't a single word in the Bible telling us that Jesus Christ had long hair and a beard. There's no description of any kind anywhere. Jesus was a completely blank canvas. So he's usually difficult to recognize when he makes his first hesitant appearances in art. He's this rather ordinary-looking fellow here, healing the sick so quietly.
Roman gods stood on pedestals. They had muscles and torsos. The gods looked like emperors, but not this quiet, youthful, almost wimpish Jesus. Jesus is the first God who came down to earth and became just as human as you or me. He was fully a God and yet also fully a man. How on earth could artists put a face to that mind-bending idea?
I don't believe in the existence of angels. But looking at you, I wonder if that's true. But if I did, I would summon them together. Ask them to watch over you.
We're so used to images of Christ with our long history of Christianity behind us that we can't imagine how difficult it was for the first Christian artists. There they were faced with the problem of creating an image for a new God. Suddenly a new God appears on the scene who had no image before. And I think the modern viewer finds it very confusing to look at Christ and see, in early Christian art, and see the variety of appearances of him. Sometimes young, beardless, long hair down to his shoulder, freely flowing hair covering his ears, and then sometimes dark hair parted in the middle. No one imagined that Christ walked around Palestine with hair down to his shoulders. And if you look at portraits of men of his times, they're not wearing their hair that way. Long hair is, even today, thought of as effeminate. But in early Christian times, in late antiquity, it was even more so. You have that wonderful quotation in Paul's letter to the Corinthians. What does he say? He says, "Does not nature itself tell us that long hair is degrading for a man? But if a woman has long hair, it's her pride." And Paul's prejudice on this subject is simply the prejudice of the time. The fact is that the great gods of antiquity were all seen to have both masculine and feminine aspects. And I think when Christ wears long hair and has in fact swelling breasts, kind of adolescent swelling breasts in many of the early Christian representations, it's a reflection of this sense that the gods embodied both male and female sources of power, and they were nurturing as well as governing gods. I think most interesting are the representations of the baptism of Christ, where Christ is clearly male and female. That is, he's shown nude, and one sees his male parts, but he is shown in a very feminine profile and with long hair and beardless face. And one thinks, of course, of the wonderful quote from St. Paul on baptism. "There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female." Somehow, being incorporated into this new religion through water and through being reborn in the sacrament of baptism, made one a whole person that united all these different aspects.
So, why is it that the face of Jesus has had so many versions? This familiar suffering figure, flogged, rejected, in pain, crowned with thorns, would not have been familiar to the original Christians. He would have shocked them mightily, as he ought surely to shock us still. We know him so well, but it took 1,000 years for this Jesus to make an appearance in art. Abused and nearly naked, he is our Redeemer. And what can we have been thinking when we made such a pained, exposed, endlessly suffering Jesus the chosen image of our God? A millennium or so after the first artistic attempts to imagine Christ, a popular story began circulating madly in Christian circles. It's not a tale that appears in the Bible or anything as authentic as that. But people wanted to believe it, so it caught on. According to this Dark Age legend of Veronica's veil, while trooping up Calvary with his cross, Jesus paused to wipe his bloody face on a veil handed to him by a woman called Veronica. When he gave it back to her, she saw he had left his true likeness in blood and sweat on her cloth. Medieval artists loved to imagine this dramatic and entirely fictitious scene of Veronica and her miraculous veil. They painted it over and over. The picture itself became a kind of sacred relic, holy-looking and austere. So how can we be so sure it's all a fiction? Because of her name, Veronica. It's a crude classical code, vera, icon, Veronica, meaning the true image. What wishful thinking! Most recently, in a weird blend of the ancient and the modern, Veronica has become the patron saint of photographers.